Hey there, and welcome. So today we're tackling something that can feel, well, like a contradiction, right? Morality and foreign policy. But we're going to dive into the core principles that, according to our source material, really act as a moral compass for India on the world stage.
I mean, it's a huge question, isn't it? When you think about it, the world often runs on self-interest and power. So can a nation really have a moral compass? Is there actually room for ideals when things get tough, or is it all just about what's practical? Well, the sources we're digging into today say that for India, the answer is a definite yes. So that's exactly what we're going to do in this explainer. Break down the philosophical ideas that make up that very compass.
All right, so let's start at the beginning, with the historical cornerstone of this whole policy. It's a set of 5 principles, and they're known as Panchsheel. Now that translates to the 5 virtues, and you'll see how it really is the foundation for everything else.
And this isn't some new idea. Panchsheel, these principles were first written down way back in 1954. It was part of an agreement between India and China about the Tibet region. And really, at its heart, it was all about creating a roadmap for countries to get along peacefully.
So what exactly are these 5 virtues? Let's tick them off. First up, you've got mutual respect for each other's territory and sovereignty. Makes sense. Then, number 2, mutual non-aggression. Number 3 is mutual non-interference, basically minding your own business. 4th is all about equality and mutual benefit, so everyone gets something out of it. And all of this leads to the big one, number 5, peaceful coexistence. You put them all together and you've got a pretty clear code of conduct for how nations should interact.
Okay, so we've got the rules. Now, let's zoom out a bit and see how these rules fit into a much bigger, more philosophical worldview. We're moving from the how-to to the why.
And right at the heart of this worldview is this incredible Sanskrit phrase, Vasudha Iva Kutumba. The translation? It's simple, but wow, is it profound. The world is one family. That one idea, it just elevates this whole framework to another level. And look, this isn't just a nice-sounding poetic phrase. It's a whole philosophy, and it's built on this idea of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas. What does that mean? It's all about working together, growing together, and doing it all with trust, as one global community. It completely flips the script, Instead of a world full of competitors, it's a world that's one big interconnected family.
Okay, so we've got the rules of Panchsheel and this beautiful philosophy of the world as one family. But ideals on paper are one thing. Taking action is something else entirely. So the real question is, how does all this actually show up in the real world? How does it become policy? And this is where we see that direct link between the principle and the practice. Take proactive assistance. That's not just a nice phrase. It means getting in there and doing things. Like helping with capacity building in Afghanistan to make their institutions stronger. Or look at global problem solving. That idea directly led to huge initiatives, like the vaccine diplomacy program we all saw during the pandemic.
Yeah, let's actually dig into that vaccine diplomacy initiative a bit more. It's such a powerful and recent example of these principles really being tested during a massive global crisis.
The scale here was just massive. We are talking about 60 million. That's 60 million COVID-19 vaccine doses exported from India. Think about that. They went out to countries all over the planet.
And it's interesting how they did it. It wasn't all one thing. If you break down that 60 million, about half were sold commercially. But, and this is the crucial part, 10 million of those doses were just given as grants. That's direct help, no strings attached, which really speaks to that idea of helping the global family when they need it most. So, we've looked at the principles, and we've seen them in practice. What's the bottom line here? Why does any of this matter? Why have a moral framework for foreign policy at all?
I think the key takeaway is that this is a layered approach, kind of like building blocks. At the very bottom, you have Panchsheel. Those are the solid foundational rules. Then, on top of that, you have the philosophy of Vasudha Iva Kutumba, that big idea of a single global family. And then at the very peak, you have action. That's where those ideals get turned into actual tangible help for people.
And so that leaves us with one last thing to think about. In the messy, complex world we live in, with all its competing interests and crises, how much can these kinds of ideals, these big ideas, really shape what a country does on the world stage? It's definitely something to chew on.